Quantum Break is the amalgamation of Remedy Entertainment's previous titles Max Payne and Alan Wake. The influence is very clear in the narrative style, gameplay, and visual design. The game displays Remedy's talent and established style of storytelling through receiving exposition and plot told by the character as you go through the game. You play as Jack Joyce, who gains time manipulation powers through an accident, and then the power struggle starts between him and a company called Monarch, a company who is interested in harnessing the power of time travel, amongst other things. The story is well delivered and executed by excellent voice acting, and the time travel concept is one that is often explored in many different type of medias, books, movies, but it's a difficult one to create while staying within the laws of physics and logic, and also attempting not to make the story too convoluted and too confusing for the audience. This is why many stay away from this concept of time travel, and when they do, a lot of the times it is poorly executed. But Remedy still does a decent job at this, and they stick to one basic premise or law when it comes to time travel, is that it's constant and unchanging, for the most part at least. And I give them a lot of credit for trying to tackle this concept in their game. As I said, it is not an easy task. What I didn't like is the fact that there are several attempts in the game to expand the story via collectible documents. But in my opinion, this method of passively telling an additional side story in gaming is becoming obsolete. Although certain story-driven games, in my opinion, do execute it well, it does not work well in a constant action pacing of a game like Quantum Break. And I understand this was their attempt to slow down the game and not have it constant action throughout, but I think it was poorly executed. For example, after combating an area of several enemies, the last thing you want to do is read 7 long emails and notes to decipher the backstory. Usually games try to spread out these documents throughout the level, but in certain situations in Quantum Break, you'll come to an area and it'll have like 7 or more documents or readable material in one area. And nobody wants to sit through these long emails and notes, as I said, all at one given time. And it's almost as if they tried to shoehorn a lot of them in a few certain spots instead of spreading them out evenly. The Quantum Break TV series, though, I did find very captivating, and it adds a great amount to the story, but sometimes it can seem a little bit out of place and forces the player to put down the controller for too long. They were exploring and experimenting with this different method of telling a story, which I definitely give them, merit for and applaud them for that. And I think going forward in gaming, this is something that can or may be used, but more efficiently. But overall, I just think forcing the player to put down the controller for too long isn't a good thing. So I definitely enjoy the TV episodes, and I think it even had enough potential that it could even be a Netflix series. That's how good it was to me. Quantum Break is frenetic and fun, especially when you learn to adequately use your time manipulation powers in combination at each enemy engagement. You can upgrade your powers by finding Chronon scattered around the levels, but unfortunately, it's highly unnecessary because you can beat the game even on the hardest difficulty without upgrading any of your powers. So there's really nothing that makes you want to go around and find these upgrades. Now, the game at its core is still mainly a third-person shooter, so those mechanics are still important. Even though you have all these time manipulation powers, the shooting mechanics function well. The automatic cover system does present some issues at times when you're trying to attach to the right cover, but you get detached unintentionally. There are really good moments of, physics and destruction, as you'll see like individual items in the environment be destroyed during firefights. What was frustrating though was the inability to vault over practical objects such as a low ledge or a piece of cover, which is a very strange design for a third-person cover shooter. It seemed to be a weird design choice, and certain things in the game make me believe that the new Northlight engine that they started using for Quantum Break needs to be developed further. The AI was average, and it showed that the industry really needs a breakthrough when it comes to this. I did find the game overall entirely too easy, even on the hardest difficulty. Even though I did die a few times, it was most likely due to me using my powers incorrectly or a movement mistake, but I hardly ever felt like these enemies are actually giving me a challenge or this part is too hard. There are a few obstacles, which you can hardly really call them puzzles, which you have to use your powers to complete, but these are few and far between and for the most part kind of unimaginative, especially given that this is a sci-fi game with time manipulation. They could have been more creative. There was more opportunity to be creative with the level design, such as what was done in the third act of the game, which was easily the most impressively built section in terms of level design. One of the biggest things that Quantum Break allows you to do differently is at certain points at the end of each chapter, called junctions, you can make choices as the antagonist which determine changes and future events in the story. The problem with Quantum Break is there's not enough gameplay overall. You spend about 5 or so hours actually playing and, getting to take advantage of these powers, with the other 2 or 3 hours consisting of cutscenes and the TV series. Now, Quantum Break is a very visually impressive game. Remedy went all the way in with the visual effects, but there are some drawbacks. The PC version specifically, for example, has some camera bugs after initiating certain moves like the time rush. There are instances of crashing. The PC version is also missing a quit button and suffers from frame rate drops, especially during the TV series. The overall game, unfortunately, is missing some basic movement animations and is lacking on some detail. There are instances of blurry and inconsistent textures, and they seem to be using this color tint or film grain, which kind of actually diminishes the clarity of the game. Even with anti-aliasing on, I still notice jaggies, sharp objects, and shimmering on plenty of objects, which there shouldn't be. And as I said, even though the game is very impressive with the visual effects, the overall image quality isn't what it should be on PC. And this is most likely due to the fact that Remedy confirmed that even on the PC version, it's using temporal reconstruction, which you may know as the method which uses lower resolution assets and combine them together to create a higher resolution image. So the fact that this is being used on the PC, which there is no reason it shouldn't be, because this is what's used on the Xbox One, a piece of hardware which was unable to reach 1080p the natural way. So the PC version actually suffers due to that technical decision. Nevertheless, the character models are still well made and detailed, and the environment design, especially when you're outside, is very reminiscent to me of the Alan Wake environment structure. The use of visual effects are some of the most impressive I've seen, but sometimes it can be a little bit excessive to the point where it actually becomes an obstruction of your vision and you can't actually see what's happening on screen. You combine those visual effects with the color your screen turns when you're taking damage and you have somewhat a low visibility. I don't mind a challenging game at all, but I don't like a game where the challenge is coming from my vision being obstructed by technical or visual obstacles. Apparently, it's even been confirmed that the game has some unwanted ghosting effects. Now, for those of you who don't understand what ghosting is actually something that many of us content creators or YouTubers disable when we create videos. Ghosting is when you see a trail of previous movement images happening after the character has already passed that point. Think of it like a movement shadow or a ripple effect behind you every time you move. Now, some may think that this is just a intentional thing that's happening in the game due to the time travel, for example, the time rush, but it's actually an effect from the temporal reconstruction, which once again diminishes the overall quality. The game is not as sharp or clean as it should be, especially given a PC version at the highest settings. It's even not that much better than its Xbox counterpart, unfortunately. So overall, Quantum Break is a fun game, and it even has some replay value. It's a game I could see myself playing one more time. That I do recommend you play, but it is not a day one buy or anything amazing. It's a fun, solid game held back by a decent number of issues, especially the PC version. I do hope to see a sequel with major improvements, an overall more fleshed out game. The foundation and potential for something amazing is absolutely here, but it wasn't delivered upon in the first game. Quantum Break is obviously a new IP, and it has a lot of capability to grow. And I do think that this can turn into a great franchise. A lot of games on their first entrance weren't the best, but the second ones usually turn out to be really good. Now, I wasn't too fond of actual celebrities playing the main character. I do feel like it kind of takes you out of the game, because instead of seeing this original character with with their own personality and learning about them, all I can see is Shawn Ashmore as Iceman. So my verdict is, it's not a game worth buying a new platform for, but if you already have a PC or an Xbox One, then I think it's a good pickup after a price drop. So that's my review. Thank all of you for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.